Yeah, thank you, Randy. Can't thank you enough. You're a soldier. I will speak louder. I'll speak louder. I was hearing some babbling around the outskirts. I don't know. Was President Biden here? Everyone's trying to take my coffee. Yeah. I'm glad everyone stayed after Roger Waters and Ben Cohen for the little people. Just a humble editor of a website that was just declared by Wikipedia to be far left and far right at the same time. We'll talk about that in a second, because it does relate. Yeah, I came in last night, had dinner with an old friend, a not political friend, and he brought his apolitical girlfriend, who brought her apolitical corporate friends. Very nice people, I mean, great people. And after 2 hours of talking about themselves, they asked me what I was doing in New York. And I said, I'm speaking at a rally for Julian Assange. And they just drew a blank. They said, who the hell is Julian? Julian Lennon? Julius Irving? They didn't know who Julian Assange was. And these are people that are highly educated. And they have been betrayed. No, it's not their fault. And when I told them who Julian Assange was, and that he is being literally tortured and has been in solitary confinement for 1,000 days and more for exposing official corruption and the crimes of our national security state, they were horrified, and you could actually see tears in their eyes when they learned that he was also a father and a husband who's been deprived of holding his children simply because he told the truth about our national security state. We have an entire population to reach here. Most people do not know who Julian Assange is, and that's why this work is so important. Now I'll tell you about another event I went to earlier this year in Los Angeles. Some of you might not like it from the lockdown left, but it was at a rally to defeat the mandates. Yeah. Those of you who don't like it, it's irrelevant. We all need to get along. We need to get over these divisions from the pandemic. And I'm sorry you got mad at me, but I'm not mad at you. I'm sorry you fell for the psyop. But I was just there. I was just there to explain how I thought that the lockdowns and the health passports were creating a digital dystopia. And when I said that Julian Assange had warned about this for years, before I even called for his freedom, this right-leaning crowd got on its feet and cheered immediately for the freedom of Julian Assange. Wow. And it was an amazing moment. Now why? Why? Because they watch stuff like Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson has had Roger Waters on repeatedly to advocate for Julian Assange. It's crazy. We're living in an upside-down world right now, where the Fox News network that was clamoring for the war in Iraq is now presenting space for people to advocate for the freedom of Julian Assange. And so there's an opportunity there. Randy really wants my coffee. But who are the people that we have the hardest time trying to talk to about this? It's the progressives, the liberals, the MSNBC watchers, the people who read legacy media. We call them shitlibs now, but these are educated people who read the New York Times and the Washington Post, and they don't realize the Washington Post is owned by one of the world's richest men, who is a contractor for the CIA, who hosts the CIA's cloud at his Amazon. They don't realize that, and they are hostile to Julian Assange. So, the people who support the Patriot Act. So the mainstream media has become an enemy of the journalist, the most courageous publisher and journalist of our time. And I always tell this story. I always tell this story about the piece that I published that Randy mentioned at the Gray Zone, about how the CIA was running an operation to surveil Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy. They had taken over the security through UC Global, and so everyone who came in through the front door to visit Julian, they thought they were speaking to an Ecuadorian security guard. It was in fact a CIA asset who would take their devices, open their devices, invade their devices, and then send it back to Langley. So who were some of those people? Some of those people were reporters for these same publications that have demonized Julian Assange, painting him as a Russian spy and so on. One of them was Ellen Nakashima, the chief national security correspondent for the Washington Post. I published photos of her devices that were opened by CIA assets at UC Global. Just to restate that, the chief national security correspondent for the Washington Post had her devices infiltrated by the CIA. Now, can you imagine if the Russian FSB did that? What would have happened? There would have been headlines on every mainstream publication. I went to the Washington Post. I went to Ellen Nakashima. I said, do you have any comment on this? Do you have anything to say about this? No. Silence. Crickets. Not a goddamn thing, because they can't bite the hand that feeds them. They are coward. No, they're worse than cowards. They are the voice of the national security state that Julian Assange exposed. They are the stenographers for our secret government, and they betrayed Julian Assange. So a letter recently came out. Thank you to the New York Times publisher Arthur Sulzberger for participating in this letter. Several mainstream legacy publications called for the U.S. to drop the Espionage Act charges against Julian Assange. Finally, years later, they finally did this. The New York Times was the only American publication to sign that letter. No LA Times, no Chicago Tribune, no Washington Post, no Wall Street Journal, no Associated Press, no Reuters, because they are the stenographers for the national security state. They are worse than cowards. They are part of the crimes that Julian Assange exposed. Julian Assange asked, what is the average death count for every Western journalist? And that is a question we need to continue to ask today. Those people know that they will never be on the hook. They will never face punishment, as Julian Assange did, because they will never do what he did. But those of us who do, and we do this at the Gray Zone, if you read anything Kit Clarenberg published recently about the British national security state, British intelligence, we continue to do this. There is a target on our back because of what is happening to Julian Assange. And so we are fighting not only for the right of Julian Assange to hold his children and be with his wife, we're fighting for the right to expose the secret government, the national security state, the Central Intelligence Agency, which has a $90 billion or more black budget, which has infested Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms with its former agents. And we see Garland Nixon here is banned from Twitter. I thought Elon Musk was exposing censorship. Yeah. National security state contractor Elon Musk, I thought he was exposing censorship. He said only the right is censored. But why are anti-imperialists like Garland Nixon censored? Why are they suspended? Why? Why isn't he leaking the files about that? Why isn't he leaking the files about Russiagate? Why isn't he leaking the files about everyone who criticized the Ukraine proxy war being suspended? Why has Elon Musk not restored the Twitter account of Julian Assange? Can we at least free Julian Assange's Twitter account? So I want to close by reading an email from Julian Assange. Hi all, I'm in Iceland. You should be too, or at least reporting about it. I've been in Iceland the past few weeks advising parliamentarians here on a cross-party proposal to turn Iceland into an international journalism haven, a jurisdiction designed to attract organizations into publishing online from Iceland by adopting the strongest press and source protection laws from around the world. In my role as WikiLeaks editor, I've been involved in fighting off many legal attacks. To do that and keep our sources safe, we have had to spread assets, encrypt everything, and move telecommunications and people around the world to activate protective laws and national jurisdictions. It goes on, but he says, that's why I'm excited about what is happening in Iceland, which has started to see the world in a new way after its mini revolution a year ago. That was February 2010, and today Julian Assange has been captured. And he was captured because he was, and he's being tortured because he was leading a revolution in journalism. And that's why. Not because he violated the Espionage Act. So it's our job today to continue that revolution, to continue the revolution that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks started, and to see Julian Assange standing here with us and his family to see that revolution through. Thank you. Yeah,